Hello. Happy Wednesday. How's everybody doing? Kuroneko, Black Cat, Demon, already in the chat. Good to see you. So what have you been streaming? You said you were thinking of starting up. I will see if I can open that simultaneously. Yes, you. What have you been doing? Because I've seen you start your stream a few times, but I haven't been able to pop in. Looks like maybe... Oh, I'm a little warm. Farmo says, welcome back, KNA. It's been hot around here the past few days. Although I was a couple of cities over where it was even warmer. It was 36 degrees today. I don't know if it got up to 37 at all. I saw it at 36. Apex. Then Genshin. And a bit of Minecraft. It's been a very long time since I played Minecraft. I played it back when it was relatively new, not to date myself or anything, but I think when it was still kind of in like, I don't know if it was considered early access necessarily, it was just available through its own website. And it wasn't on every platform possible. Is the light here going to be a problem? But yeah, we've been reading Magician's Gambit, David Eddings. My sound is low. Let me check my gain. Gain's turned up. Maybe I can turn it up here a little bit. How about that? How does that sound? Is that any better? I feel like I'm getting background noise a little bit because my volume meter is just kind of bouncing. Edgar Bears back for the first day of college. Blood Ring by Faith Hunter. That sounds intriguing. An intriguing title. Blood Ring, book by Faith Hunter. Rogue Mage, #1. A near future world, not what I was expecting. Ambiguous apocalypse. Just taking a look at the synopsis a little bit, but I won't read it out loud just in case that contains spoilers. Thorn St. Croix. It's no ordinary neo-mage. I love the language. Leftover creation energy, ooh. Sounds intriguing. Some Minecraft tomorrow. Yeah, did me adjusting the volume balance there, did that help at all? Let me shift this, and then Where did that bag go? There it is. Alright, well, you gotta look at the screen for just a moment because I'm summoning the puppy. Introduction of digital filmmaking. That's entertaining sounding. Alright. Benedict. Look at his tail wagging. He's so happy. Thank you. Oh, hey, take it nice. Don't be snappy. Is that a different doggo? No, same doggo, maybe just slightly different lighting. This is Binnabic. Binnakegabinnick. Binnakegabon Bean. Binnabic. Yep, that's it. Showing us his fuzzy butt. You gonna lay down there? Oh, good boy. You can see him there, and then a painting of him up there. Which was given to us as a gift. Oh yeah, his collar is on. Introduction for digital filmmaking. I don't know if I've mentioned, I worked in film a bit, like in television around here. There's a lot of television industry in the Vancouver area. So I've worked on a bunch of shows. Worked on Supernatural for 2 years. A little over 2 years, I think. Yeah, technically over 2 years, depending on how you count it. Then went from that to The Flash, the CW TV show, The Flash, where we were next door neighbors with Arrow, and, you know, did some crossover episodes and things like that, of course. And then after that, actually it was sort of between seasons on that I worked on Prison Break. So it was like The Flash, Prison Break, The Flash again. What else? There was a little show called Cedar Cove, which was fun. That was it was almost like a summer vacation working on that show because it basically only ever filmed outside during the daytime when it was sunny and we were out and, you know, by the water and lovely locations, and yeah, so that was actually a fun show to work on. And then Colony was probably somewhere after that. Yeah, so I've worked on a few things. A few days on this and that, and Lost in Space. Yeah. Oh, right. Don't have the poster up for the indie film. The music video was just a for fun thing, like helping out someone that I knew from working on a guy that worked on The Flash has a band, and so he was doing a music video and wanted some help with that, so that was just kind of a for fun sort of thing. Should probably turn the lights on in here. That's why it's feeling off. There, that'll help a little. What a good pup. So yeah, I've done some film work. But Edgar was saying digital filmmaking. So are you interested in like animations sort of thing, or what's your goal? Do you have a goal? We've been doing a bingo card with the book we've been reading. We're getting pretty close. on a few of the lines, especially B1, the first row. We're just missing Garion being cocky to finish that one off. And also the O column, we're missing one of the characters, Silk, being a D&D rogue to finish that off. But yeah, here's our card. So let's see. We've filled in quite a few spots at this point. Barak suggesting violence. We filled in somebody getting a head injury. Silk being very sarcastic, more so than usual. Just grim. Grim is a word that we've noticed gets used very frequently. So, and there's sort of a running joke with that. Garion eavesdropping got filled in a little sooner than I actually expected. A god showing up in the book, which we had the space as, oh hey god. Oh, puppy's moved to his bed. One of the characters, Dernick, being a pyro. He just, anytime they have a campfire, Dernick's the one to build it. He is a blacksmith, so it makes sense. Our free space right in the center is angst. Someone being angsty. Sinedra weirdly watching Garion. What's this one over here? Unusual descriptive word being used. So that's more of like a word that it's less about the word itself being weird and more about it being weird, used in sort of a weird way, like something being described with a word that you wouldn't normally think of being used to describe it. I forget what actually checked that one off. Dernick again being judgy is one we filled in. Also crying, tears, somebody crying. Garion must stay in an uncomfortable situation. And then Sinedra issuing orders is just a tiny circle in there because she kind of issued orders. It was a little unclear. And so that one kind of is just a partial, like, hey, technically it happened, but I don't know if I really want to count it. Doesn't seem to matter too much, though, because nothing else on either of the lines connected to that one has really gotten filled in, so right now it's not really affecting anything anyway. So yeah, there's a few that we could get that would get us a bingo. And then I don't know what we're going to do. What should we do if we do get a bingo? I haven't really established a prize. So yeah, that's sort of more or less where we're at. 7:15 and no Sharkies. I'm slightly surprised. I wonder if they are occupied tonight. Check in. So Apex Legends, huh? Although it said you were streaming, but right now kind of just looks like it's not moving. Do I need to refresh? No, now it says offline. Weird. Starting to feel a little cooler. Maybe the air conditioning is kicking in a bit. So let's see. Why don't I do a little recap of where we're at? We're in on chapter 24 on page 260 in the copy. That I am reading. So chapter 23, I think there was a bit of a fight, actually. Let's see. Yes, so Silk had recently gotten himself captured. Your stream died? Oh, jeez. Gotten himself captured by our old friend Brill, who turned Silk over to the king of the Murgos, Tar Urgas, who has an old bone to pick with Silk after back up. So it is. Yeah, after some time in the past, Silk, it seems, was maybe responsible for the death of Tar Urgas's eldest son. And I guess Tar Urgas has not quite forgiven him for that. Busy day at the water slides? Which water slides did you go to? And seeing family. Well, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're joining us. Aldergrove water slides. I don't know if I've ever been to Aldergrove's water slides. I don't know if I knew that Aldergrove had water slides. I was out closer to the Cultus Lake water slides today. Didn't go to them, but it's less than 5 years old. Huh. How are they? What's the quality like? And are they expensive? Because that's the big downside to the Cultus Lake water slides, is they are so expensive to get into. It's a good family place. Since I don't have the bingo cam on the screen right now, maybe I'll move the chat back over here. I think I kind of, in general, prefer the chat on that side. Just had moved it over for when we had the bingo cam up. We were just talking about the bingo sheet, which you missed. We're still one space away in the first row and one space away in the last column. Very affordable because it's owned by the township of Langley. That's actually pretty cool. Maybe maybe I'll have to go check that out sometime. But I imagine probably not anything in terms of really like massive slides. If that's how it's run. Because I guess that is kind of the thing with the Cultus Lake slides. They've got some really big, fancy facilities there. Even if it is very expensive. Alright, well that sounds like it could be entertaining. Yeah, so I was just doing a little recap, talking about how Silk got himself captured and then, luckily, subsequently rescued. Which, is both good and bad for Silk. And honestly, it's good for Silk because otherwise he would have had a very unpleasant morning, and then probably not much else after that. But in comparison, he had a very unpleasant trip through a hillside he did not enjoy. Inner tube slides are fun. Then after that, once we got into chapter 23, they rode hard through the night and another day. And Relg led them to a shelter, a cave for shelter. Turns out, after his little trip through the hillside, Silk is feeling even more claustrophobic than before. Also, we learned that the reason that Relg had never been sick before is because apparently his act of walking through stone, well, he doesn't bring illnesses with them. They get left behind. So, and then they moved through a bog that contained some geysers and quicksand, and after that they got almost ambushed, except that they noticed it ahead of time. Relg heard some sound, and Polgara figured out what was waiting for them, which they dealt with in a variety of ways, some of which seemed a little more unpleasant than others. And that's where we're at. That leaves us on chapter 24. And I'm feeling a little... I've had a fairly big week, so I'm going to get started, because I'm not sure how much energy I'm going to have for tonight. Yeah. So, page 260 out of 305. Chapter 24. Everybody ready? The next morning, they followed the ridgeline that angled off toward the east. The wintry sky above them was an icy blue, and there was no warmth to the sun. Relg kept his eyes veiled against the light, and muttered prayers as he rode to ward off his panic. Several times they saw dust clouds far out on the desolation of sand and salt flats to the south, but they were unable to determine whether the clouds were caused by Murgo patrols or Vagrant Winds. Vagrant Winds. I don't know if that's a band name necessarily. Maybe like Vagrant Winds could be like a country band. I could see that. Bugs? What? Bugs? Did I miss something? Dust clouds, Murgo patrols. But anyways, about noon, the wind shifted and blew in steadily. Oh, bogs. Bogs. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. I was very confused for a moment. Bogs, yes. Okay. About noon, the wind shifted and blew in steadily from the south. A ponderous cloud, black as ink, blotted out the jagged line of peaks lying along the southern horizon. It moved toward them with a kind of ominous inexorability, and flickers of lightning glimmered in its sooty underbelly. "That's a bad storm coming, Belgarath," Barak rumbled, staring at the cloud. Belgarath shook his head. "It's not a storm," he replied. "It's ashfall. That volcano out there is erupting again, and the wind's blowing the ash this way." It's interesting. A cloud of ash moving with lightning flickering in it. You can't read inexorable without thinking of good omens. I guess that is a bit of a conversation they have about that. Isn't do they talk about like what something being inexorable really means? I have a vague remembrance of that, but not enough for details. Oh, ineffable. That makes yes. Now, okay, that makes more sense. Yes, it's ineffable. Yes. Kind of angstily described storm. If only we had a button for that. Angst storm. It's ineffable. Barak made a face, then shrugged.
At least we won't have to worry about being seen once it starts, he says.
The Grolims won't be looking for us with their eyes, Barak, Aunt Pole reminded him. Belgarath scratched at his beard.
We'll have to take steps to deal with that, I suppose.
This is a large group to shield, Father, Aunt Pole pointed out. And that's not even counting the horses. Angstorm. Nice.
I think you can manage it, Pole. You were always very good at it.
I can hold up my side as long as you can hold up yours, old wolf.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to help you, Pole. Tuchik himself is looking for us. I've felt him several times already, and I'm going to have to concentrate on him. If he decides to strike at us, he'll come very fast. I'll have to be ready for him, and I can't do that if I'm all tangled up in a shield.
I can't do it alone, Father, she protested. Nobody can enclose this many men and horses without help.
Garion can help you.
Me? Garion jerked his eyes off the looming cloud to stare at his grandfather. He's never done it before, Father, Aunt Pole pointed out.
He's going to have to learn sometime.
This is hardly the time or place for experimentation.
He'll do just fine. Walk him through it a time or two until he gets the hang of it.
Exactly what is it I'm supposed to do? Garion asked apprehensively. Aunt Pole gave Belgarath a hard look, and then turned to Garion. I'll show you, dear, she said. The first thing you have to do is stay calm. It really isn't all that difficult. But you just said, never mind what I said, dear. Just pay attention. Little self-contradiction there. It's easy, don't worry about it. You just said I couldn't do it. What do you want me to do? He asked doubtfully. The first thing is to relax, she replied, and think about sand and rock. That's all? Just do that first. Concentrate. He thought about sand and rock. No, Garion, not white sand. Black sand, like the sand all around us. You didn't say that. I didn't think I had to. Belgarath started to laugh. Do you want to do this, Father? She demanded crossly. Then she turned back to Garion. Do it again, dear. Try to get it right this time. It's a little unfair. Doesn't explain what the end result is intended to be, just starts laying out vague steps. He fixed it in his mind. That's better, she told him. Now, as soon as you get sand and rock firmly in your mind, I want you to sort of push the idea out in a half circle so that it covers your entire right side. I'll take care of the left. He strained with it. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Don't push quite so hard, Garion. You're wrinkling it, and it's very hard for me to make the seams match when you do that. Just keep it steady and smooth. I'm sorry. He smoothed it out. How does it look, Father? She asked the old man. Garion felt a tentative push against the idea he was holding. What would that feel like? Something pushing against an idea you're holding. What?
Not bad, Pole,
Belgarath replied.
Not bad at all. The boy's got talent.
Just exactly what are we doing? Garion asked. In spite of the chill, he felt sweat standing out on his forehead.
You're making a shield,
Belgarath told him.
You enclose yourself in the idea of sand and rock, and it merges with the real sand and rock all around us. When Grolims go looking for things with their minds, they're looking for men and horses. They'll sweep right past us, because all they'll see here is more sand and more rock.
Interesting description, Sharkies. Also, this is an interesting little, they're making a mental cloaking device. That's all there is to it? Garion was quite pleased with how simple it was. There's a bit more, dear, Aunt Pole said. We're going to extend it now so that it covers all of us. Go out slowly, a few feet at a time. That was much less simple. He tore the fabric of the idea several times before he got it pushed out as far as Aunt Pole wanted it. He felt a strange merging of his mind with hers along the center of the idea, where the two sides joined. I think we've got it now, Father, Aunt Pole said.
I told you he could do it, Pole.
The purple-black cloud was rolling ominously up the sky toward them, and faint rumbles of thunder growled along its leading edge.
If that ash is anything like what it was in Nyssa, we're going to be wandering blind out here, Belgarath,
Barak said.
Don't worry about it,
the sorcerer replied.
I've got a lock on Rak Kthol. The Grolims aren't the only ones who can locate things that way. Let's move out.
They started along the ridge again, as the cloud blotted out the sky overhead. The thunder shocks were a continuous rumble, and lightning seethed in the boiling cloud. The lightning had an arid, crackling quality about it as the billions of tiny particles seethed and churned, building enormous static discharges. Then the first specks of drifting ash began to settle down through the icy air, as Belgarath led them down off the ridge and out onto the sand flats. By the end of the first hour, Garion found that holding the image in his mind had grown easier. It was no longer necessary to concentrate all his attention on it, as it had been at first. Seethed? Did that happen twice there? I feel like I've got a loose eyelash or something. Seethed. Thundershocks, lightning seethed. Lightning had an arid crackling. As billions of tiny particles seethed and churned. They were in two separate sentences, technically, but yep. Two sentences in a row containing seethed. Guess that is a little odd. Garion found that holding the image in his mind had grown easier. It was no longer necessary to concentrate all his attention on it as it had been at first. By the end of the second hour, it had become no more than tedious. To relieve the boredom of it as they rode through the thickening ashfall, he thought about one of the huge skeletons they had passed when they had first entered the wasteland. Painstakingly, he constructed one of them and placed it in the image he was holding. On the whole, he thought it looked rather good, and it gave him something to do. "Garion," Aunt Pole said crisply, "please don't try to be creative." "What?" "Just stick to sand. The skeleton's very nice, but it looks a bit peculiar with only one side." "One side?" "There wasn't a skeleton on my side of the image. Just yours. Keep it simple, Garion. Don't embellish." The magic is basically nothing to see here, just some sand wandering through the desert. Yeah, I guess it looks a little more odd when it nothing to see here, just a skeleton with one side slowly shifting through the desert. So, does that count as Garion getting cocky, or Garion doing something unexpected? It was pretty brief, and only Aunt Pole would notice it, so I don't know. What does everyone think about that? Feels like a little bit of an anticlimactic way to... I don't think he was really getting cocky. He was pleased with himself, but I don't think he was cocky. He was just bored. Farmhouse thinks cocky sounds right. That would give us a bingo. I don't know if I'm ready for it. You wouldn't say unexpected, though. Sharkies don't think it's cocky, just bored, yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying. So maybe neither then? Alright, we'll leave it. So, keep it simple, Garion. Don't embellish. They rode on, their faces muffled to keep the choking ash out of their mouths and noses. A teenager putting a skull on something because he's bored is not unexpected. Fair enough. Garion felt a tentative push against the image he was holding. It seemed to flutter against his mind, feeling almost like the wriggling touch of the tadpoles he had once caught in the pond at Faldor's farm. I haven't heard about Faldor's farm for a while. "Hold it steady, Garion," Aunt Pole warned. "That's a Grolem." "Did he see us?" "No. There. He's moving on now." And the fluttering touch was gone. The shield's working. They spent the night in another of the piles of broken rock that dotted the wasteland. Dernick once again devised a kind of low, hollowed-out shelter of piled rock and anchored-down tent cloth. They took a cold supper of bread and dried meat, and built no fire. No bingo space for Dernick, even if it is already filled in. Garion and Aunt Pole took turns holding the image of empty sand over them like an umbrella. He discovered that it was much easier when they weren't moving. The ash was still falling the next morning, but the sky was no longer the inky black it had been the day before. "I think it's thinning out, Belgarath," Silk said, as they saddled their horses. "If it blows over, we'll have to start dodging patrols again." The old man nodded.
"We'd better hurry," he agreed. "There's a place I know of where we can hide, about 5 miles north of the city. I'd like to get there before this ashfall subsides. You can see for 10 leagues in any direction from the walls of Rakthol.
Are the walls so high, then? Mandaralin asked.
Higher than you can imagine.
Higher even than the walls of Omimbre?
10 times higher. 50 times higher. You'll have to see it to understand.
They rode hard that day. Garion and Aunt Pole held their shield of thought in place, but the searching touches of the Grolems came more frequently now. Several times the push against Garion's mind was very strong, and came without warning. "They know what we're doing, Father," Aunt Pole told the old man. "They're trying to penetrate the screen."
"Hold it firm," he replied. "You know what to do if one of them breaks through."
She nodded, her face grim.
"Warn the boy."
She nodded again, then turned to Garion. "Listen to me carefully, dear," she said gravely. Sharkies feel like Belgrath might be old man exaggerating about the height of the wall. I don't know. You'll have to see it to understand. "Listen to me carefully, dear," she said gravely. "The Grolems are trying to take us by surprise." "The best shield in the world can be penetrated if you hit it quickly enough and hard enough. If one of them does manage to break through, I'm going to tell you to stop. When I say stop, I want you to erase the image immediately and put your mind completely away from it." That seems like a difficult task. You need to concentrate on sand and rock for days on end, even overnight. But when I say stop, you need to think about anything other than sand and rock. That's I don't know. That seems tough. Yeah, we had a grim then a grave. You feel that would be worse than not thinking about it? Yeah. "I don't understand." "You don't have to. Just do exactly as I say." You don't have to understand, you just have to do it. With a mental exercise like this, I feel like you kind of have to understand. "If I tell you to stop, pull your thought out of contact with mine instantly. I'll be doing something that's very dangerous, and I don't want you getting hurt." "Can't I help?" "No, dear, not this time." They rode on. The ashfall grew even thinner, and the sky overhead turned a hazy, yellowish blue. Wouldn't that be like green? Yellowish blue, isn't that green? The ball of the sun, pale and round like a full moon, appeared not far above the western horizon. I've seen that before, where there was one morning when I was working on, it was on Supernatural, because I remember my ALM. I was in this parking lot, and I remember looking up at the sky. This was during forest fire season, and the smoke was particularly bad. I remember looking up at the sky and being like, the moon looks really weird. I'm just staring at this, ball in the sky and being like, the moon looks weird, like pretty weird. Like it looks a little brighter than normal, and it's like a weird color. And then it took me a little while to realize, oh, that's the sun, just staring straight at the sun through the smoke. So, the ball of the sun, pale and round like a full moon, appeared not far above the southwestern horizon. "Garion, stop!" What came was not a push, but a sharp stab. Garion gasped and jerked his mind away, throwing the image of sand from him. Aunt Pole stiffened, and her eyes were blazing. Her hand flicked a short gesture, and she spoke a single word. The surge Garion felt as her will unleashed was overpowering. With a momentary dismay, he realized that his mind was still linked to hers. The merging that had held the image together was too strong, too complete to break. He felt himself drawn with her as their still joined minds lashed out like a whip. They flashed back along the faint trail of thought that had stabbed at the shield, and they found its origin. They touched another mind, a mind filled with the exultation of discovery. Then, sure of her target now, Aunt Pole struck with the full force of her will. The mind they had touched flinched back, trying to break off the contact, but it was too late for that now. Garion could feel the other mind swelling, expanding unbearably. Then it suddenly burst, exploding into gibbering insanity. Gibbering? I think gibbering. Shattering as horror upon horror overwhelmed it. There was flight, then. Blind, shrieking flight across dark stones of some kind. A flight with the single thought of a dreadful, final escape. The stones were gone, and there was a terrible sense of falling from some incalculable height. Garion wrenched his mind away from it. "I told you to get clear," Aunt Pole snapped at him. Pharma says gibbering. I like the hard G there. I like gibbering. I told you to get clear, Aunt Pole snapped at him. I couldn't help it. I couldn't get loose. What happened? Silk's face was startled. A Grolem broke through, she replied. Did he see us? For a moment. It doesn't matter. He's dead now. You killed him? How? He forgot to defend himself. I followed his thought back. He went crazy, Garion said in a choked voice, still filled with the horror of the encounter. He jumped off something very high. He wanted to jump. It was the only way he could escape from what was happening to him. Garion felt sick.
It was awfully noisy, Pole,
Belgarath said with a pained expression.
You haven't been that clumsy in years.
I had this passenger. She gave Garion an icy look. It wasn't my fault, Garion protested. You were holding on so tight I couldn't break loose. You had us all tied together.
You do that sometimes, Pole, Belgarath told her. The contact gets a little too personal, and you seem to want to take up permanent residence. It has to do with love, I imagine.
That's kind of cute.
Do you have any idea what they're talking about?
Barak asked Silk. I wouldn't even want to guess. Aunt Pole was looking thoughtfully at Garion. Perhaps it was my fault, she admitted finally. What? Aunt Pole admitted something might have been her fault? Has that ever happened? She got cornered by Belgarath saying it has something to do with love. No, it's not that. You're embarrassing me, Dad.
You're going to have to let go someday, Pole,
Belgarath said, gravely. Wizard, yay, double whammy, Hank. Actually, it shows up pretty well against the back of this chair.
You're going to have to let go someday, Pole,
Belgarath said gravely. Perhaps, but not just yet.
You'd better put the screen back up,
the old man suggested.
They know we're out here now, and there'll be others looking for us.
She nodded. Think about sand again, Garion. The ash continued to settle as they rode through the afternoon, obscuring less and less with each passing mile. They were able to make out the shapes of the jumbled piles of rock around them, and a few rounded spires of basalt. Basalt. Like assault, but with a B. Basalt. A few rounded spires of basalt thrusting up out of the sand. As they approached another of the low rock ridges that cut across the wasteland at regular intervals, Garion saw something dark and enormously high looming in the haze ahead.
We can hide here until dark,
Belgarath said, dismounting behind the ridge. Think about sand again, Garion. Nice random quote to put on a t-shirt. That's an interesting consideration. Basalt assault. Yeah, if you had like a basalt knife. Basalt assault. Ah. Are we there? Dernick asked, looking around.
That's Rakthol.
The old man pointed at the ominous shadow. Barak squinted at it.
I thought that was just a mountain. It is. Rakthol's built on top of it. It's almost like Prolgu then, isn't it? The locations are similar, but Ktuchik the magician lives here. That makes it quite different from Prolgu.
The stream of the video is actually pretty far behind, it looks like, unless I just need to refresh. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I just needed to refresh apparently. I thought Ktuchik was a sorcerer. Sorcerer, Garion said, puzzled. Why do you keep calling him a magician?
It's a term of contempt,
Belgarath replied.
It's considered a deadly insult in our particular society.
They picketed the horses among some large rocks on the back side of the ridge, and climbed the 40 or so feet to the top, where they took cover to watch and wait for nightfall. As the settling ash thinned even more, the peak began to emerge from the haze. It was not so much a mountain as a rock pinnacle towering up out of the wasteland. Its base, surrounded by a mass of shattered rubble, was fully 5 miles around, and its sides were sheer and black as night. How high doth it reach? Mandaralan asked, his voice dropping almost unconsciously into a half-whisper.
Somewhat more than a mile,
Belgarath replied. Kuro Neko Akuma has discovered our wizard goose. A steep causeway rose sharply from the floor of the wasteland to encircle the upper 1,000 or so feet of the Black Tower.
I imagine that took a while to build,
Barak noted.
About 1,000 years,
Belgarath answered. Is that a Pikachu? Pika Worlds? A little, like, suit and top hat? It's cute. Oh boy.
About 1,000 years,
Belgarath answered.
While it was under construction, the Murgos bought every slave the Nissens could put their hands on.
A grim business, Mandaralin observed.
It's a grim place,
Belgarath agreed.
The double whammy. Grim, grim.
Bard's a grim man. As the chill breeze blew off the last of the haze, the shape of the city perched atop the crag began to emerge. The walls were as black as the sides of the pinnacle, and black turrets jutted out from them, seemingly at random. So, for this, there's not a picture here, I don't think. But you've got walls, and then you've got turrets sticking out from the walls, is how I picture this. Little, turrets coming out like that, and coming out from the walls. Black turrets jutted out from them, seemingly at random. Dark spires rose within the walls, stabbing up into the evening sky like spears. There was a foreboding, evil air about the black city of the Grolims. It perched, brooding, atop its peak, looking out over the savage wasteland of sand, rock, and sulfur-reeking bogs that encircled it. The sun, sinking into the banks of cloud and ash along the jagged western rim of the wasteland, bathed the grim fortress above them in a sooty crimson glow. You get the feeling we're in for a lot of grim. Sharky's having trouble with bogs today. The walls of Rak-Kthul seemed to bleed. It was as if all the blood that had been spilled on all the altars of Torak since the world began had been gathered together to stain the dread city above them, and that all the oceans of the world would not be enough to wash it clean again. And that's the end of chapter 24. We're at exactly 8 o'clock Pacific time for chapter 25, page 269. Let's see how long it is. It goes from 269 to 280, so it's about 11 pages. Gross, yeah. We are getting closer to the end, so let's see. Chapter 25, how many chapters are there? Did I pass one here? No. Chapter 25, chapter 26. Is there not a chapter? Oh, there is a chapter 27. I believe there are 27 chapters. So, if we read one more tonight, it would be a little bit of a longer one if we do. But if we did read one more tonight, we might finish this book on Friday. Alternately, we stop here, we read one or two on Friday, and then we finish next Wednesday. So, what do people think? Should we try and aim for finishing this week, or should we put it off a little bit and finish next week? How much energy do people have? Do we want to do another 11 pages? Makes the Sharkies think about a D&D magic item called the Butcher's Apron, which is one that is constantly bloody. Saw on Critical Role. I've not heard of the Butcher's Apron. That, doesn't sound very nice. I suppose depends on how much your character likes blood, huh? Nico says meow. Not nyan. I was wondering, it depends on what kind of blood it is, but yeah, I'm wondering whether, although they said appears bloody, no, it says is constantly bloody, yeah. I wonder what type of blood that is and whether it counts for a vampire's purposes. That's a cool cat. Glitch cat. Still have a relative over? Alright, that's fair. In that case, yeah, I'm a little tired too, and a little bit hungry. Not very hungry, but a little. It has been a long week for me, as I previously mentioned, so we'll stop here for tonight. Human or synthetic blood? Yeah, I'm curious what the description... I wonder if that was something that they wrote themselves for their game, if that's a custom magic item, or if it's something that's in... actually, the Butcher's Bib. Because that would be, designing it, one of my immediate thoughts is... even if it's pretty obscure, like, realistically. But I suppose if you had a character who was playing... like, their character... if you had a player playing a vampire character... you know, in theory, that could be very useful. There were other boons to the bib, I hope so. Imagine getting that as a magic item, and it's this butcher's apron that's dripping with blood, and you go, okay, what does it do? You know, let's attune to it and find out what it does. It drips with blood, that's it. That would be a little bit of a letdown. Shark fishing. What is it we smell again? Blood. Oh. Not toast? No, I'm pretty sure it's blood. Oh. I think I might be having a stroke. Before we go, found a little something interesting. Got a couple of books here. One is... let's get this here. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Which is cool. But when I open it up, it's actually got a nice little kind of inside illustration. Rerolls damage for melee attacks. Ooh. Let's see, where did it say? This version, as far as I can tell, and I'm trying to be very gentle, but I believe is from 1925, this copy I'm holding in my hand. Which makes it nearly 100 years old, doesn't it? Printed in Great Britain. It says, first issue of this edition, 1908. Reprinted 1911, 1914, 1916, 1920, 1925. I suppose it does have... oh, yes. And there's also, right here, best wishes from something, from someone, Xmas 1932. It says, the ordinary edition is bound in cloth with gilt design and colored top. There is also a library edition in reinforced cloth. This is number 280 of Every Man's Library. The publishers will be pleased to send freely to all applicants a list of the published and projected volumes arranged under the following sections. So that's... You love when a really old book has those kinds of notes? Yeah. That's kind of neat, though, huh? The Prince by Machiavelli. From nearly 100 years ago. And then, we also have... Bees Shown to the Children. Which is, to me, a very odd-sounding title. This is definitely not in as good shape. The Prince looks much neater, just looking at the book itself. Bees Shown to the Children. And this one says, from Granny Witch or something like that over here. From Granny Witch. Easter, 1917. So this one is over 100 years old. Amon Breyer, hey. This book is from the signature is from 1917. And I believe, having looked up, it's part of the Shown to the Children series. We looked up, I think, Beasts Shown to the Children, which the first printing of was in 1910. Bees, it looks like, is the 11th book in the series, so it was probably printed later than that. But yes, the inscription is from 1917, Easter 1917. There's another one here as well, because there's the one that says, from Granny Witch, Easter 1917. I guess it's the same thing. Dorothy White to Nora Prince, it says on the other page here. Sharkies have a book that's about inns and taverns in London, and the book is over 130 years old. Wow. Your plan is, if you ever go to England, to bring the book and see how many still exist. That's pretty cool. Amon Breyer, I don't know if you saw, but the other book we were looking at is The Prince by Machiavelli, which is from 1925, as far as I can tell. This printing says. So, it was gifted in 1932, it looks like, but it says in here that it was reprinted 1925. So it's possible that it was printed later than that, but you can even dress historically and pretend you're time travelers with a current travel guide. Only off by like 130 something years. Yeah, I think if I were going to actually read The Prince... Oh, and it did mention the colored top. So this, I believe... Let's see, it says, the ordinary edition is bound in cloth with gilt design and colored top. There's also a library edition in reinforced cloth. So most likely this is the ordinary edition, because it's got the colored top. If I were going to read it, I probably wouldn't actually read this version because I would be too afraid of damaging it. But yeah, a couple of neat finds. Now that I've got them, I don't know what to do with them. I should probably look into bagging them in some way to keep them safer. But yeah, kind of cool. Parmos had to read The Prince for a historical literature class, so you're reading it before your ethics philosophy course. Your professor was a little concerned. Where did I find them? At my parents' house. We were out there 2 days ago. Well, yesterday, actually. Sorry, we were out there yesterday. And they had a bunch of books and things that were going to go to thrift stores, and there were many other books, but these were the two that stood out. There was an anime I was watching, which I don't think I finished watching, but the main character, it was about this character who was like a civil servant, like city planner, I think, that dies and wakes up in a fantasy world, and he was he quoted The Prince by Machiavelli quite frequently. Kuroneko has a little collection of books. I'm not sure if you should read some live. Why not? If it's something that you think would be fun. To me, there are upsides and downsides. I don't think there are a huge number of people that read on stream. And realistically, it's just me. I want to share my books, and it's a fun way for me to reread my books and kind of learn more about them myself, because I pick up a lot more details reading them with everyone else. And the Sharkies have been here basically, I think, from the very beginning of when I started reading The Hobbit on stream. But the downside is that you get, further into a book, and if somebody comes in and they're not familiar with the book in the first place, then they're coming in on the middle of a book or something, right? Right now we're, in the last few chapters of this, so if somebody new joins us and they haven't read this book before, they might be a little lost, especially considering we're on the third book in the series. I think it's probably wiser to stick with non-series books. But I don't know. If it's something like I said, I just kind of am doing it because it's fun to do. I think your parents still have some interesting old collections of stories, like fairy tales and Shakespeare. Yeah, one of the books we looked at was the complete works of Shakespeare, but I think we've already got a complete works of Shakespeare somewhere, so we left that one. That was kind of a neat addition. Well, I think I am probably about done for tonight. So why fantasy type books, and mostly from yard sales and food bank? Some you don't have the full series and missing the first book. I don't know if I can start a series partway through. I need to know the whole story. Why don't we raid over to, I don't know, let's say Kuroneko, if you're going to continue streaming tonight. Although, right as I say that, it looks like you went offline. Did your stream crash, or are you done for tonight? Almost immediately as I said it. Crick, crick. You're going to stream something else? Alright, well, I'll see if once you go up. I wonder if I can start a raid if you're offline. No, it doesn't look like it'll work. Raid. I want to, but I can't. The stream's offline. You can't raid someone who's offline. Soul Calibur. I haven't played a Soul Calibur game since, like, Xbox One, maybe. Okay, I'll give you a second, then let's all go give Kuroneko a little attention over on their stream. What's the temperature like over on your side of the continent, Kuroneko? Because from what I recall, you're over on the other side of Canada, right? If I'm remembering correctly? Or am I mixing that up? Oh, there we go. Soul Calibur 6. And it's raining. Oh, it's so warm here right now. The raid has been created. Alright, well, thank you all. We'll see about how far we're going to get on Friday. I expect we probably will only read 1 or 2 chapters on Friday. We've got 3 to go. So we'll probably finish this book next week. But have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thanks again. Go say hi to Neko, the black cat. Alright. Good night. Starting the raid. Here we go.